So with the NBA nearing a brand new TV deal, there's a lot of interesting things going on in this sports media landscape with companies consolidating. You got Peacock merging with Netflix and Apple TV to form a bundle. Same thing for Discovery Plus and Hulu and HBO Max, just all collaborating into one package instead of having their customers sporadically jump from one platform to the next. And that's all just to maintain the subscription, because people's habits in this streaming era is very different. They may tune into one platform because of a particular show, but then when that show ends, they're off that platform. So the business model of streaming has not really been proven to be fully profitable. And this sort of consumer behavior when it comes to streaming is going to trickle down into sports. What happens when a particular team is not doing as well, especially when it comes to the local TV deals? What happens when a consumer checks out of an app because their favorite sport is currently in their off season? So many consolidations between different streaming platforms will continue on, which blurs the line of who's really in competition with who, as we see ESPN, Fox, and Discovery, aka TNT, all collaborate on an app that's soon to be released. And also ESPN is going to have their own standalone app, which is direct to consumer. And even when launched, they're still going to be operating under the whole premise that streaming has not really been profitable outside of Netflix. But we're going to get direct insight from a few people within the sports industry, starting out with Stephen A. Smith, on some of the inner nuances that are going on behind the scenes. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Thing about it is this: the first order of business they accomplished is when they took basketball-related income and they reduced it from 57% to 50%. Because what happens is that, okay, there's a line, there's a share that you're getting as ownership, all right, when it comes to player salaries and the investments that you got to make in players. You're establishing a degree of cost certainty. So you know that as a result, you can compete to some degree because there's but so much you can spend. It's going to be very punitive if you go over the luxury tax and stuff like that, and the rich stay rich because they know how to be cheap when they need to be cheap. So we understand that part. But in the larger markets, particularly if you're innovative enough, you can really, really maximize the potential of your individual franchise, and that's not going to be stopped. So the NBA will guard against that. But the streaming stratosphere has really opened things up. And what I would say to you is that you got to really, really look at what the NFL did. They were on DirecTV, but then they went to YouTube, and they couldn't be happier by making that move. And it does look like a better product. The clarity, you know, of just the whole visual, it just looks aesthetically brilliant on the part of the NFL. Absolutely.
It just pops more?
It just pops more. Not only that, you got 4 games on one screen. So you don't have to sit up there and have 3, 4 multiple TVs or whatever. You could put 3 or 4 games on one screen. And then you know what? You could sit up there and, you know, full screen any game that you want. So having the ability to do those things really, really puts the NFL in a good position. The other leagues are watching because the NFL is the model. And so now you got the NBA, and they're going to make deals with TNT. They're going to make deals with ABC and ESPN, NBC.
Now, the only issue with the NBA making deals with local broadcasting networks is that they operate on the backs of cable. See, with the NFL going to YouTube TV, Peacock, and all these streaming apps, is that they also provide them with the global reach of just being on a internet streaming platform. Not only that, but they also provide data on their customers. I'm pretty sure that's the underlying part that the NFL did not even speak on. They're collecting data on what their customers like to consume, what are their habits, what time do they actually tune into the app, what time is their best performing games. You see, they get to collect this information. But if the NBA signs back up with TNT, and this is one of the conundrums of that network, is that they really can't provide the NBA with data on their customers. They don't have that infrastructure set up. So regardless of the amount of money that TNT could throw into the NBA, number one, the NBA audience is not necessarily on cable. And number two, they don't have the infrastructure to collect data on the audience, which is almost as valuable as the money that they're given per year. And one thing we've learned from these social media companies, data is king.
ABC probably is going to want to get back into the mix, but make no mistake about it, they're going to make sure they have a digital platform to put their product on. And because you have a product to put because you have a platform to put your product on in the digital stratosphere, that may attract more digital competition. Why is that relevant? We take a situation, ABC and ESPN, you are with Disney, collaborating with Fox, Warner Brothers Discovery, right? Their market cap was projected to be at approximately a little under $400 billion. A lot of money, we get all of that. You know what Apple is? You know what Amazon is?
They're like over trillions.
Nearly $3 trillion apiece.
And that's going to be ESPN's issue when they go direct to consumer, as well as that app that they have collaborating with Discovery and Fox, is that these networks really rely on their consumers subscribing month in, month out. Meanwhile, these tech companies have other things built into their ecosystems. Amazon has food delivery. You can get everyday items and essentials that you need for your home. Apple has the iPhone and that whole ecosystem behind it, whether it be music, iCloud, etc. So the tech companies could really acquire some of these assets like the NBA, the NFL, not necessarily to turn a profit right away. They could bite the bullet, but they could just add those things to their already built-in ecosystem. But traditional broadcast networks don't really have that cushion.
You know what's it? If not a little over that. And so when you see that, they just haven't really delved into the world of sports, because obviously these league rights fees cost a load and some of them don't want to pay it. And if you don't need to pay it because you're already more valuable than anybody else, why do you need to do that? But if they decided that they wanted to get into it a bit more, who knows what the hell will happen.
Not necessarily the tech companies don't want to pay it. They actually want to have a proof of concept. I believe them getting into the whole documentary sports style thing, or just doing these one-offs, maybe with WWE or just these boxing events like the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, it kind of gives them proof of concept, because once again, behind the scenes, they're data collecting on their customers. So they're going to have the exact numbers to a T on whether this works or not, or if it's even valuable for them to get these sports leagues, because we all know these sports leagues eventually, after their contract expires, are going to want more and more money. So the tech companies have that understanding, and they're going to want some data showing that things can go in their favor. So that's why we've seen a slight hesitation or just a easing into the live/sports world, i.e. Netflix and Amazon.
Netflix, what if they decide they really want to stick their toes into the world of sports? What's going to happen? So the leagues are looking at all of this and they're exploring what opportunities are available to them. And if you're the National Football League, if you're college football, if you're the NBA, you're going to have a whole bunch of suitors. You're going to have a whole bunch of suitors. And if you're showing the ability, especially if they figure out how to monetize the streaming stratosphere to the degree they should.
Stephen A. Smith lets you know right there, the streaming model has not yet been proven to be fully a functional source of revenue going forward. We've seen Paramount struggle with this, and a lot of these networks that have all these movies that they made in the past and present struggle once they launch their own streaming services, including Disney. So building a business relying on subscription numbers, what happens once you hit the peak? And this is a point where Netflix might have begun to hit the wall, because they're reporting to their investors that they're no longer going to announce the subscriber count. But once again, with the tech companies, we got to look at the infrastructure that they have. They could collect data on the audience. And the NFL being one of the first leagues to do YouTube deals along with Amazon and just having their product on streaming, they are one of the first ones to the table to collect data on their audience. And this is where it leaves TNT in a very tough spot with the NBA, and it explains why eventually they lost their deal. But just to have a 40-year relationship with that network, you gotta really wonder how the NBA wiggled out of that without even leaving any sour taste in a television partner like Turner, who gave the NBA a chance when their product used to be on television on replay. To walk away from a deal like that, things get quite tricky. But the NBA had a clause in their deal with TNT that if another company overbid TNT, that they had the ability to match. And it leaves a few of us to ask ourselves, did the NBA and NBC inflate the price to go back to TNT and say, hey, match this, knowing that they wouldn't. David Sampson and Pablo Torre give us some insight on some of the inner nuances that are going on within these contracts. And boy, this shit get tricky.
David Zaslav has decided he's okay losing.
It doesn't seem that way.
It'll get us to another.
Because he went to a game?
No, because there's also reports, I don't understand them, but there's also reports that he has a matching right. So I think it's possible that he gambled and thought, gee, my shareholders, once I have a matching right, I'll go and match it because they'll tell me they don't want to lose it. Now you get into another set of problems, which is a matching right of what? It's not just the money. They can't say, oh, whatever you're getting, it's about where it's being distributed, what the promotion you're agreeing to.
The data that they're collecting on the audience, does TNT have that ability? That's part of the matching rights.
But your studio show is, now their TNT has an advantage. It's a whole bunch of different matters.
I want to explain what matching right is in case you were trying to find out. When you have a deal that you cut with with a different company, you're a free agent and you go out, let's say you're a player, and you go out and you sign a 4-year deal, $40 million with Team X. But the team you were on has a right to match that, like a restricted free agent in the NBA. You take that deal to the incumbent and you say, if you'll match this, we're good to go. So the NBA gave a right to match to its incumbent television partners, one of whom is Turner. So if they go to NBC and get an entire deal, they have to, under contract, bring that whole deal to Turner and say, here it is. We don't need to negotiate anymore. This is a fully baked deal, ready to sign. Will you match it? The fight that Skipper's talking about that happens every time is what happens when you put together a deal. Adam Silver conspires with NBC to put together a deal that TNT cannot match. There are provisions in there that going in, TNT it's prohibitively expensive, or they don't even have the platform to do it.
Yeah.
AKA audience data collection. There we go. They don't have the ability to do that, so they could be priced out just because of that.
I don't believe they would manipulate the deal. They'll do the best deal they can. Look, I don't know. I don't even remember having a matching right. I did that deal. I don't even remember, and I don't think I ever asked for it. We probably had smart lawyers who asked for it. I did 100 deals. I never evoked a matching clause because I never wanted to be in that situation because I never believed, unless it was completely similar, that a matching right would work. Right? It does work for employees. If we had talent and we get a matching right, easy. And nobody disputed that. But we never triggered a single time that I remember a matching.
Do you not believe
right.
a matching right has an impact on the value of the underlying asset? It's very much business school 101 to me. When you
explain that
a matching right, it's very hard to go to a third party because NBC would say to themselves, I don't want to spend the legal dollars. I don't want to give you an offer that you're just going to take right back to the incumbent and we're going to lose it anyway. So that has an impact in getting partners. The other side of that is when you have a friendship or relationship and you say to the NBC, listen, go ahead. You don't want this, but make a huge offer. TNT is going to match it.
And I do believe a matching right. If I'm a rights holder, I would not give a matching right.
Agreed.
So I do take your point, which is we always understood intrinsically that the matching right depresses the value.
Yes.
Right?
It's an advantage to the rights holder who gets it.
To use that device in whatever way they see fit. Speaking of ESPN, though, they have, according to Puck, the framework of a deal to keep the NBA for an expected another decade at least, which is on par with Amazon. So to come back around to how we started this, ESPN, unsurprising, I think, as an interested party here, John.
As an interested party, we'll be right back to where we were before. It's essential content. They have to renew their deal.
So Amazon in this context,
almost at any price.
Yes. So, okay, now, David has perked up like a meerkat at hearing the concept of any price.
But by the way, what I'll also tell you, I believe, but don't have any firsthand knowledge of, Bob Iger would never let it come up past the negotiating window. So when they say they have a framework of a deal, it means almost certainly they have a handshake. They had it sometime before 12 a.m. on Monday, because they wouldn't let it get
That's the
to
expiration of the exclusive negotiating period, which is another thing you have to give in a deal, which you hate to give when you give anyone an exclusive right. By definition, that has a quashing impact on the value. But the incumbents had this right, exclusive period, and John's referenced the fact that Turner let it expire, but so did ESPN. And ESPN, he's saying...
I'm not sure they did.
There's nothing been announced that it's a done deal. But the rumor is that the ESPN deal is done, but we don't get that feeling with Turner.
No, I don't think at all. I think that they made the mistake of either believing the match would help them or that they could figure it out later. In my opinion, I would have tried to get something done before that matching period ended.
I think Turner already had the understanding that they did not have the infrastructure. This new TV deal is not necessarily about the money. It's about the infrastructure and the access to the audience. Today's viewers under a certain age are not subscribing to cable. So do you have the infrastructure to broadcast to that audience on a global stage and also collect the data? It really comes down to that.
So ESPN, I don't ever believe in saying that a company has to do something because you lose all leverage.
Because
when
you're
you say that.
hypothetically negotiating as if you are the seller.
And there's
in
no,
every
you can't walk
scenario we
away.
discuss.
And so you're presenting ESPN cannot lose the NBA.
Well,
In a way, they cannot really lose the NBA because they're launching a standalone app, which is direct to consumer. And Disney has made it known multiple times that it's hard to make that ESPN entity profitable. So them going direct to consumer in an era where streaming has not yet to be proven profitable in the long term, it's kind of a compromising position. The NBA definitely has leverage over them.
I'm not doing it anymore, so I can sit here. That's the benefit of being here instead of in that office.
No, David is still in that office, John.
I'm trying for this show to be in that office because I want that. That is not the way to view it. ESPN, as an example, doesn't view baseball that way because there's a thought that they will exercise their opt-out clause at the end of this year.
David is still negotiating with John, by the way. If you haven't noticed, that's something of his entire show.
Thank you.
And that's a double-edged sword with, a lot of these sports leagues getting into streaming. They're going to have the data and the numbers on those ratings. This might actually play out very similar to podcasting, in which you can get your advertisements, you can get your deals locked in, but at the end of the day, if your show is not performing, eventually those companies are not going to renew. Streaming is nothing like the cable/broadcasting business, where they can bundle a bunch of channels together and then charge a flat fee, and they have the market share or just the access over the consumer to keep raising prices. And it looks like with all the consolidation, a lot of these companies are trying to find a way to leverage all these bundles together so they could eventually just raise the price. Because if you have to have one of them, then you have all of them. And if you raise the price on one of them, you basically raise the price on everything. So in a way, eventually streaming would end up looking like the cable bundle anyway. Again, these are interesting times.
So nobody's asked whether there's an opt-out in this 10-year deal. I personally was not aware there was an opt-out in the baseball deal, but that I think was done.
Had a little notch on the table too?
No, I think that's after I was gone.
Okay.
We did not have one, I don't think, before. And that's actually a great thing for a company to get, right? I like having that. I wish I'd been smart enough to have that.
It's player opt-outs. It gives all the power to the player. Because if you feel as though you're overpaying, you opt out and adjust it or get more for your money.
I don't actually know why baseball would give that. And I don't know why Adam would give that here. The NBA would give that here. And I assume they won't.
So let me bring you inside an owners meeting and tell you why we would give it and why we did give it. The answer was that owners had a desire for an immediate infusion of cash and for a guaranteed tail of what that annual distribution would be. So it came with ESPN is now guaranteed, let's say it was 8 years. We promise you as the commissioner's office that we will distribute X millions of dollars to you as a team every single year from this deal. You can then take that and use it as your budget to sign players or to do the things that you want to do. Then when baseball says, by the way, to get this, we have to put an opt-out in. Like what owners do with a player who demands an opt-out. You say, all right, fine, we don't like it, but we want you so badly. That was the view. We didn't have enough competition to ESPN that if we didn't grant what they wanted. So what I'm blown away is John saying all the things he didn't know he wanted, where what's told to us is these were deal breakers. And it turns out you had no idea of any of it.
No, but to be fair, I had smart people who did.
We always thought it was Skipper related, is what we were all told.
Often was.
So,
but
the ogre Skipper.
I, as a league, man, I would never give an opt-out. And baseball, as you know, David, has got enough problems already. If ESPN opts out, they've got real problems.
I think they will opt out, but there will be another deal in place when they do opt out, and that's often what players do. They exercise an opt out because they've already pre-negotiated. Like what owners do with a player who demands an opt out. You say, all right, fine, we don't like it, but we want you so badly. That was the view. We didn't have enough competition to ESPN that if we didn't grant what they wanted. So what I'm blown away is John.
The opt-out does not work in favor of Major League Baseball, but it works in favor of the NFL. They're definitely going to opt out a year early and get more money from Amazon, Peacock, etc. The NBA, if they don't improve their product, an opt-out will definitely hurt them. This is one of the reasons why Adam Silver all season long has been saying a return to basketball. No more load management. The product overall on the court has to improve. Once again, these tech companies, they're going to be data-driven.
On saying all the things he didn't know he wanted, where what's told to us is these were deal breakers. And it turns out you had no idea of any of it.
No, but to be fair, I had smart people who did.
We always thought it was Skipper related, is what we were all told.
Often was.
So,
but
the ogre Skipper.
As a league, man, I would never give an opt-out. And baseball, as you know, David, has got enough problems already. If ESPN opts out, they've got real problems.
I think they will opt out, but there will be another deal in place when they do opt out, and that's often what players do. They exercise an opt out because they've already pre-negotiated the extension with the incumbent team.
Right.
So I think ESPN isn't going to walk away from baseball because there's months
I wouldn't think so.
Where the NBA is over.
Now it's funny that he says at certain periods that these leagues will be over and they need inventory, but the way the NFL and the NBA are going, kind of creating their drafts as like a month-long event, even as going as far as to extending the days, doing these documentaries, kind of adding more media coverage to their off seasons, the NFL grabbing Christmas Day games. A lot of these leagues don't really care about another league's monthly real estate. The NBA does not care. Major League Baseball is in the summer. Normally that's their months. The NBA is going to want to be talked about all summer long with their summer league growing out there in Las Vegas, as well as NBA free agency taking over. Same thing for the NFL, their preseason, their training camps, the documentaries within their training camps. These leagues at some point, especially with streaming, they're going to want to be run 365. If the offseason is happening, they're going to have documentaries. They're going to have inside scoops on what's going on with some players during their offseason workouts, etc. So Major League Baseball has to be aware of this because they're doing great domestically per region or per state as far as their local teams. But on a national scale, compared to the NFL and the NBA, yeah, they're definitely behind. They got to make some changes there. And they definitely have, but certain nuances to attract a younger demographic that they've added into the game, the pitch count. But these things take time, and you have to usher in a new generation of players to truly change the game. That culture that existed in Major League Baseball with the whole playing the game the right way, that shit is all nice and dandy, but when it comes to the entertainment value on television, especially for viewers that's out of market, that maybe don't live in Milwaukee to watch the Bruins, you got to put something out there to appeal to that audience and just actually catch their eye.
The NBA's never over, the NFL's never over, and ESPN needs baseball, right? All the highlights. And ESPN has lots and lots of very significant baseball fans. I do not believe they will walk away from baseball.
Amazon did a playoff game, and they signed up. What did they do where they got 3 million subscribers and 80% of them didn't cancel?
With the NFL.
That's NBC. That was Peacock.
That was Peacock for a playoff game. Amazon's view here, is they want to get all sports. They've got a local deal with the Yankees for baseball. Then you add the Thursday night NFL game. Now we're going to add NBA. We're all things to all people. Make sure you buy packages and have them delivered Prime overnight. I think this is just part of their continued strategy. I don't think that they necessarily care about the NBA. I think it's just what acquirers do, is they want to make sure they acquire. It's like a monopoly buying Connecticut Avenue. It's really not going to be that helpful to me, but I'd rather have it versus not.
And that's the conundrum ESPN faces. You see, these tech companies, they already have ecosystems where they profit off of other things. So the NBA doesn't necessarily have to be profitable right away for YouTube or Amazon or even Apple. And they actually have enough cash flow within those ecosystems to actually create their own version of ESPN.
And I don't think you mean that they don't care about what the NBA, it's good business. It's retention of subscribers. The most important content to sports fans is sports. And Amazon Prime wants you not to cancel your sub or not to be part of Amazon Prime. And you will be, because you got to get your Thursday night football. And now potentially you're going to have to get your
So
part
we
of your
disagree
NBA.
here.
So
I
you
don't
say Connecticut Avenue, John says a railroad.
So yes, he's saying it's a bit more important than I am. You're saying that that's an anchor tenant.
Yeah, I think it is.
Football and basketball.
Well, and Amazon has also just paid $120 million for the exclusive playoff game for this upcoming season.
So I view those
In the
as
NFL.
just a bit as rebar, not as the keystone. And the reason I do is that I don't think their business model is sports and people who want their NBA or NFL. I think their business model is people who want their packages.
People who want their packages and also collecting data on that audience, then selling that data for advertisement, which is something that Amazon low-key is getting into. They could sell direct specific ads to companies within their platforms, whether that's Amazon.com or the Amazon app or even their Amazon Prime on the television screens. They've been data collecting on their audience and they're in prime position to sell ads better than traditional cable/TV networks ever did. And also Netflix is attempting to get into the same business with their advertising. We've seen them slowly roll out a package where they give customers the ability to pay a cheaper price to watch ads, but they've been also collecting data on their customers. So they could be setting up an ecosystem where they could sell to advertisers directly to the specific audience and demo that they want.
You want people to come on Amazon and just stay. And if they like sports, great. If you don't like sports, they're going to offer you other sort of content.
What David is saying is that it's not existential to Amazon.
This is,
But it is useful enough to the point where they will, in fact, outbid the traditional media companies, so to speak.
this is the dream come true for leagues, that there is a bidder who is willing to be as irrational as John was when he was bidding, where he just wants to have it. And that has gone away. And I don't, to tie this up, I don't view Turner that way, the way I do view Amazon that way.
And TNT not being willing to be a reckless spender could not have happened at a worser time than right now, because with the local RSN business collapsing, with local teams not being able to turn a profit, through Bally Sports filing for bankruptcy, a lot of those team owners will be searching for that cash flow. They're used to being bundled up with other small market teams. In the NBA, I believe it was around 15 teams that were bundled into Bally's. And now with them having an opt-out clause with the new TV deal coming around the corner, they may be bundled into some sort of package within the streaming. But that local TV money is not guaranteed. So the national TV deal is going to be a lot more emphasized by some of these small market owners. We've seen Mark Cuban sell the Dallas Mavericks, as he was one of those 15 NBA teams that was bundled into that Bally Sports package. But Evan Drellick of The Athletic kind of gave us some insight on a local level of some of the RSN issues that are going on and how it's affecting some of these teams, especially in Major League Baseball, as the Yankees and Dodgers have their own separate deals, which has been proven to be profitable, while other MLB teams have been scrambling to find an alternative to get their games to their customers. But this does have a correlation to the NBA and their issues going on with Bally's right now. But unlike Major League Baseball, the NBA has an opt-out clause where at the end of the year, they'll maintain the rights to those 15 other NBA small market teams. But again, the business of streaming has not been proven that it could be profitable long term. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Well, the RSN landscape is collapsing and crumbling and falling apart. I mean, even if you just take baseball, Diamond dropped 2 teams, Arizona and San Diego, and they renegotiated 3 other teams. Cleveland, Texas, and Minnesota, their deal expired, but they re-upped on a 1-year deal. So that's basically a renegotiation.
The NBA has also had certain teams like the Houston Rockets bundle up with their local MLB team to form their own network. And the Phoenix Suns, they've actually been broadcast on local television down there in Arizona. So the fallout with Bally Sports has already affected certain NBA teams, as a few teams had to scramble and find a way to get their games to their local audience. The Utah Jazz is also one of them. But the MLB situation that they're about to speak on has a correlation to the NBA teams with the dealings of the fallout of the RSN business model.
There are still 9 other teams that they haven't touched, right? So the majority of baseball teams that Diamond was working with, basically the perception you can walk away with is, well, those deals are working fine. And the reality is there isn't money established, consistent money coming in through streaming options yet, really, for anybody. I mean, Peacock losing more than $2 billion in 2023. So it's not going to disappear, at least not overnight. I think what you've heard people in baseball, Commissioner Rob Manfred talk about, and I hear some media consultants talking about, is this kind of modified world where the exclusivity gets lessened. So, you could broadcast the games simultaneously. Maybe you can stream them, and the rights fees get lessened. But the RSN team relationship still exists. And in baseball, it's going to become very important. It was important years ago for these exclusivity arrangements to be loosened, and they haven't been. And it means that, if you're in a Comcast territory, you want to watch the Twins, and you're a Comcast subscriber, well, you're not in a great spot here if you subscribe to Comcast, because there isn't this alternative streaming option that you can just sign up for available separately. So I think it's less doomsday and more an altered world. MLB would like to have a national in-market streaming package. MLB.TV, which has existed for years and is, in my opinion, a great product. You could just, it works pretty darn well, and you can watch any out-of-market game. Wouldn't it be nice for fans and customers and anybody who just wants to watch a game to have that as an option for in-market? So if I'm in New York, where I am, I want to watch the Mets or the Yankees, I can't do that through MLB TV, and this has been a long-running complaint that people have, and this has to do with the exclusivity deals that the RSNs make with the teams. So what I was talking about before, where you get to this world where things get loosened, wouldn't it be great if both could exist? The RSN gets to broadcast the games, pays the team maybe less money than they do now, and also you could sign up through this package and get the games in the same way. I think that's the world that baseball would want the most, because that gives you still some set income, which, if baseball were only selling a national streaming package, it's a lot less predictable. People can walk away whenever, and sure, people can stop subscribing to cable, but once you get the box, typically you keep the box. We see cord cutters, but I think there's less variability of people going in and out of subscriptions when it comes to cable. So they want to be paid. I think that's overlooked here. It's like, yeah, do they want to have a national streaming package? Sure. If that means making a lot less money than they do now, they probably don't want it. But that's a little bit, cutting off your nose to spite your face, because they do need to broaden their reach. They do need to make it easier for people to access these games. It is, now they're according to my colleague Andrew Marchand, nearing a deal with Roku. I mean, how many different places are you going to be able to watch a baseball game? It's just, it's a little dizzying. And I think you lose people in a crowded landscape like that.
And that's something that the NBA, when Bally Sports had first filed for bankruptcy, a lot of teams like the Jazz, the Phoenix Suns, the Houston Rockets, they made sure that their games were widely available, even if it had to go to a regular broadcasting network. Again, a perfect example of this is Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. All their games are available to anyone in the Arizona area free of charge. All you just need is an antenna. So accessibility is very important.
These teams control their individual rights. The Yankees have their own deal with Amazon, but this national package that MLB was talking about, this in-market national package that the league that Manfred said he wanted to launch for 2025, was targeted to be about half the teams in the league, which you can argue is not enough to sell anyway, and some people do argue that. And so it's not so even if what you're saying is right and makes sense, and have Amazon do it, well, which teams do you have who are participating? And that's dependent in part on what deals are already in place. And again, this is why if Diamond emerges from bankruptcy, the deals that the Diamond teams have, they're still in place, right? If Diamond disappeared, there would be basically 12 teams that would have their rights back. You combine those with the handful of teams that MLB right now is producing and the teams have control of their rights over. Okay, now you got half the league, but you don't have it otherwise. And so there is this end game question. I don't even want to call it an end game, but at some point, if you're gonna go to streaming, you've got to stop handing over exclusivity to the RSNs. And when the Twins deal got done with Diamond for this year, 1-year deal, same with the Rangers, same with the Guardians, there was exclusivity again. Diamond wanted that, and the teams via MLB granted that. At some point, you got to stop doing that if you want to increase your reach, even if it means taking a little bit less money from Diamond.
Now, this is where the NBA found a way out. Once Diamond filed for bankruptcy, they renegotiated and made sure that all the teams that they have under Diamond, that they maintain the rights at the end of this year. So the NBA, in a way, they could formulate their own streaming apps, or they could do a local RSN deal, perhaps maybe with Amazon or another streaming service.
You're hitting the nail on the head. This is a classic big market, small market baseball division where if you want to create an all 30 team package, okay, the Yankees sit there and say my rights are X times more valuable than the Marlins. Are you paying me X times more to participate in your package? And the teams control their local rights. That's just the way baseball has always operated. So, and this is a years long process that's going to unfold. You need current deals to expire, and then you would have to have some alignment of teams and owners to say we do or don't want to pool together. I do come back to a reality of, wouldn't it be nice if I want to be able to watch the 2024 Major League Baseball season? Can I sign up for something that lets me do that? Right, there's a very basic thing here that kind of unfortunately falls by the wayside because of this setup. And I got to tell you, it's one of I found all this stuff when I first started covering it maybe a bit intimidating. It is actually among the most fascinating things that I've come across, and because it controls everything, right? The amount of money that comes from the RSNs or whoever is paying for your TV rights influences how much money the teams are going to spend, influences the rosters, it's influences labor deals. It really is kind of the thing from which everything else flows. And so it's not to get all kind of existential about it, but it's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal.
So quite a conundrum for the leagues right now. On a national scale, it looks like the NBA has an advantage of closing out a lucrative deal. But on the local side, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with about half the league on expiring deals at the end of 2024. Interesting times that we're in right now. And you're beginning to see why the national NBA TV deal is going to be very important, because that local money is not really guaranteed. And the business model going forward is still unknown. But the landscape is going through a major shift. It's almost like going from back in the day farming to the transition of things being more industrial. Cars are being made in the factories, and everyday goods are being mass produced by machines. The sports media landscape is going through a very similar transition from broadcasting to streaming.